Okay. The topic here is stem cell research, and I will be arguing against Sabrina's claim that the change in federal funding of stem cell research will advance the research. Her first secondary claim was that stem cell research has lacked federal funding. I disagree. I found some evidence that says that stem cell research has sufficient funding. One major source of funding for stem cell research is grants. The California Institute for Regenerative Medicine recently awarded a few agencies with some grants. Biotime Incorporated was awarded a $4.7 million grant for stem cell research. A stem cell researcher from UC San Diego was awarded a $5.16 million grant, and Stanford received a $5.8 million grant. And the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine itself made over $275 million from the sale of state bonds. Now, this next bit of info comes from the National Institutes of Health. Their statistics show that stem cell research has received over $2 billion since 2005. Stem cell research has received $938 million in 2008, $657 million in 2007, $643 million in 2006, and $609 million in 2005. Now, this $2 billion is not including the $3 billion given to stem cell research from Proposition 71. Now, her next claim is NASA obtains more money due to it not going against people's morals. There wasn't really any factual evidence to support this claim. There was a couple of statistics saying that stem cell research, NASA would be given $20.2 billion net this year and $18.7 billion next year. There's nothing saying that that had anything to do with going against some people's morals. The next claim is that NASA gets 6 times more funding than stem cell research. Yeah, that's a fact. You can't really argue that. They do get more funding than stem cell research. The whole comparison to NASA is irrelevant. Stem cell research and NASA are 2 completely different fields of research and can't really be connected. She says that the 6 times more funding, that NASA does not use embryos for their research, and therefore people seeing them as a more respectable cause for research, and the reason why stem cell research needs more money they have already obtained from the government. What? That just sounds like it was just thrown in there. There's no evidence or statistics to say that. So, I do feel it's necessary for NASA to receive more money. Here's a hypothetical situation. Say the planet Earth is no longer inhabitable. All the resources have been used up. To avoid extinction, the human race would have to move to another planet. And with NASA research, we'd be able to know where that planet is and how to get there without dying. So in conclusion, I think the biggest problem with her argument was, well, the main claim was unclear. The change in federal funding of stem cell research will advance the research. I had a little trouble figuring out what she was trying to say. It sounds like that more funding for stem cell research will advance the research. That claim isn't really debatable because any type of research or science that receives more funding will be able to advance and research more. I also think that there was not enough factual evidence to support her claim. There were a couple of statistics, but that's it. And based on the factors that I have presented, I'd say that stem cell research has plenty of funding.
All right, you laid out the claims pretty clearly, explained your position. Basically, on the first point, you're providing us with a counterclaim. There's not much discussion about what would be adequate funding or what levels of advancement we've had based on the funding we've had so far, or what level of advancement we would get based on additional funding. So I'm not quite sure how we measure this except in terms of how much money we're spending. Apparently everybody assumes that spending more money is good, and didn't we talk about that as being a fallacy, the assumption, appeal by consensus or snob appeal, spending more is automatically better? I think that there ought to be an argument about this. You kind of accept that premise at the end of the second point, and I'm not sure that you should. But I did think that you had good counterexamples on the amount of money that we're currently spending and the availability of funds from a variety of sources. It might be helpful to argue, for instance, that the advocate failed to provide us with any demonstration that advance funding would do more than advance the research. Would it get us results from the research? We might do more research programs, but is it going to gain us cures at any time? Is it going to cause a breakthrough in knowledge? What's the likelihood or probability that these sorts of things come along? I'm going to have an example later on that I'm going to show you where just spending more money doesn't necessarily produce a result, and we'll talk about that on policy arguments when we get to it. The discussion of the NASA budget, I think you put it into appropriate context. It's just being used for comparative purposes. I thought you had a legitimate challenge on whether or not there's a morality issue based here. One of the things that you might point out, for instance, is that NASA's been funded since 1960, or actually 1959, and so it's existed a heck of a long time, which is maybe an explanation about why its budget is so much more substantial than the amount of money being spent on these other things. And, by the way, that there's no morality issue on NASA, well, that's preceded the issue of stem cell research by at least 30 years, so connecting these two things is, I think, a little bit problematic also. I thought you had a legitimate point there. I just think it needed to be a little clearer. All right, thank you.